back to the channel. I'm here with Felix. My name's Ryan. And today we're going to discuss some of the mistakes that we have seen throughout our years of racing and what maybe we see what novices do, what we've seen veterans do.
This is going to be very important. Like you said, we have seen people who've been doing this track day stuff for a long time that still fall victims.
They fall victims.
They fall victims to the mistakes that we're going to list here. And honestly, making this list was kind of complicated for us just because I think naturally some of these things are just things, like you said, we've learned throughout the years that we just do naturally since we've been doing this for so long. But making this list really made us think back to a lot.
Yep. And for all you veterans, this may seem like common sense to you. You will be surprised about maybe when you write these down and you actually start thinking about making a list like this, you're like, there's a lot going on. There's a lot to consider when doing tracking of a car. So I'll start the list, personal prep.
Okay.
These events are very physical, and it's surprising. You take the car out for the weekend, you're under pretty high G-forces, you're being subject to potentially a lot of heat. Down here in Texas, especially in Austin, most of the year is hot. It gets hotter, I think it's a little less hot, but it's always hot. And so you have to prep yourself for that.
Obviously, some people will do the last minute wrenching on their cars and they're not sleeping the amount of hours.
Sleep, yes. So sleep is a big factor. You have to get a lot of sleep because you need all the mental capacity, and we'll go into a little more detail on that. I would say you need to be able to run anywhere from 15 to 40 minutes at a heart rate of around 160 or so, depending on your body.
I like that.
So, I mean, that's not a brisk walk, that's a run. And for someone like me, it's like, well, that's a lot of effort. And so
it's a lot of
it takes a while to get used to. If you feel like you can't have a high sustained heart rate, then you need to check into that. But prepping for it, you need to be able to be in that zone for a period of time and actually be able to function. You can't just be, going flat out and not being able to do anything else, because then how are you going to think about all these other, conditions and factors that come into a track day? So personal prep, very important, but then now we have the vehicle prep.
Yeah, and vehicle prep, the most important thing I try to make people understand is every one of these track cars, even cars that come ready for the track from these new manufacturers, they all come with a compromise, whether it's brake pads, brake fluid. These cars have to be able to put the miles on the highways.
The compromise that most OEMs make is we don't want to put a very expensive pad on the car, brake fluid, or whatever parts on the car, because for them, it's at scale, it just doesn't make sense. So you have to fix those compromises to be more reliable and a better overall experience on the track.
Yeah, and I don't want to go on a tantrum, but some manufacturers are trying to save cost. Cost is super important on the Porsches. I don't know if I've told you this, but the rotor attaches to the hub with two little screws, right? And then since we're always putting wheels on and off, those screws like to get loose and then the wheel can't sit flush. Well, Porsche in these new cars is only putting one screw in there. And that's what it calls for, but it has two holes. So for me, it's like if it's got two holes, it needs two screws. Sometimes in these cars, you can go to the manual and it'll recommend an oil viscosity bump up, right? Just because the 0-20 that you'll run on the street is gonna feel like water, right? When after you're done and your oil temps get to 240, 260, 280 maybe. So the next one is going to be eyesight. You want to have those eyes as far ahead as possible. If you see an interaction happening 4 or 5 cars in front of you or 2-3 corners ahead of you, you see a car spinning out of the corner of your eye, you're already ready for that, right? When you get there.
And then there's a thing about you don't want to look where you don't want to go. I know it's a big thing, I believe, in skiing, but on the track as well. And for first-time drivers, it can be a big hurdle to get over. Don't stare at the walls. Don't stare at the tire barriers. Don't stare at the gravel pits. Don't stare at that stuff. Look at, where are they going? Where can I go? Where are some runoff spaces? Where is a safe space to go?
And this just takes me back to when we were at Watkins Glen. How Watkins Glen has the Armco super close, and I think we all finished our first session. Maybe we're not going fast enough, but when I got out of the car for the first time, I said, someone told me hey, the Armco super close, and I was like,
Didn't notice it.
Didn't notice it, right? Because you're focused on staying on track, looking through corners. Obviously, you notice the Armco on the inside of the curbing, but if you're focused and you have one goal in mind, which is to follow the line, the rest of the stuff is kind of just in your peripheral.
So the next one is kind of a big one, being an overconfident driver. It's one of the worst things you can do. It's good to have, first of all, I will say, and in my experience as an instructor, you have to build confidence in students, especially novices, they feel they can push the car a little bit more.
Yes.
The problem becomes when you get these people that come in that are overconfident and feel like there's no consequences, you can do whatever. And again, this could be novice all the way through. We've seen veterans.
We've seen it all.
They've been there for years. We've seen them where they just feel like they're immune to anything. They will never make a mistake. The worst thing you can do is come in with overconfidence, and then you start pushing the car the wrong way. You make mistakes, and then either you're in the wall, your car-to-car contact, you hurt yourself, maybe you hurt an instructor or a passenger in the car. So definitely keep yourself humble and try to follow the natural progression of things. Don't try to push the envelope.
So the next one is driving over capacity. When you go to the track and when you first arrive to the track, there is gonna be a lot going on. There's cars around you. You're going 130, 150 miles an hour down the straight. Like, it's a lot to absorb. My clearest example is me thinking back to a black flag. What did I do, Ryan?
It was a checker flag.
It was checker flag. We were relatively new, right?
We were.
Hopefully.
I think that was the first time at the track. You were going for the gold and somehow missed the checkered, and you blew past pit in, and you got every black flag. I don't know what point, I mean, you can tell us at what point do you feel you recognized, like, oh,
I think it was like
I'm the only one on the track.
I think it was like turn 3.
Everyone has black flags staring at me. Oh no, what did I do? And you came in and finally realized, oh, that was the checkered.
Yeah.
It's a very easy mistake to make if you're not paying attention. And when you drive almost to the point over your capacity, then you get such blinders that you don't see anything else.
And it was wet too, so I knew that I was way over capacity. I was trying to keep that car on track, push the limit.
That pushes your thinking super high, because you're so concerned about all these new feelings and things that you're not used to on a dry track.
The only good part about all this is that I was in the car that he was registered in. So I was good to go. He was the one called out in the driver's seat.
I got called out. But don't worry, I made sure everyone knew it was him. But it's such an easy thing that can happen, and just a split second of not paying attention can turn into, now you're taking up 2 minutes of the next session's lap time, right? So what you don't want to do. So
definitely don't.
That goes a part of just thinking that you can do whatever you want, and throughout the day nothing's gonna change anything. That's not the case at all. You have to be humble. You have to constantly think it to yourself. Okay, well, how am I doing? What's my status here? Do I need to change anything? So
the next mistake is tire mistakes. There's different approaches everyone takes to going on track. Sometimes people will show up with the stickiest rubber, and people will show up with the worst rubber. What are your thoughts?
You need to have tires in good condition. I think a tire that's a little harder, a little more of a street tire that will slip a lot more. You're not gonna get fast lap times, but you're gonna really feel the car moving underneath you. And as you talk about slip angle, which is basically where the car wants to slide, but you're not losing control.
Slides under grip. Yes.
Yeah. Then you can, kind of get a feel of, well, where are the limits? How does the car handle those limits? And what can you get away with? Then you can start adding stickier rubber, and you can start realizing those gains and realizing you can push further, because the stickier the rubber you go to, the less notice you're going to have if things are going to start getting loose, and the slip angle reduces.
Yes.
And so, you shouldn't put the stickiest rubber, and that could mean like the Michelin Sport Cup 2s. That could mean some other 200, 150 treadwear tires that are designed for track use, even though it's a street tire. You may want to go up to a higher treadwear count to get a feel for it, and then graduate to the, other compounds, stickier rubber, and if so be it, full on race slicks.
Stickier rubber will usually mask bad habits, right? Yep. So if you're used to turning the car sharp and you're used to rolling throttle, put a 200 treadwear on your tire, and I guarantee your inputs are just gonna smoothen out. Now, you may hop onto the car and say, this car feels totally terrible, but if you learn to drive the car where you're being smooth on the way in, smooth on the way out, because that's what the car likes, then you put a sticky set under the car, and now you're flying, right? Because you're being super smooth, you're being super calculated, versus driving the whole time on sticky rubber. We have plenty of friends who always do it. They won't go back to 200 treadwear tires. I think it's the biggest mistake. 200 treadwear tires, treaded tires, they will talk to you. Literally, right? You're going to the corner, it's going down 2 at Coda. If you're in a slick, there's nothing there. Sometimes they'll squeal here and there, but it can turn from a ton of grip to a sudden snap.
So the number one mistake, dehydration is an enormous problem that people won't think about until it's too late. You know, we were recently at the track where they actually had a certified nurse out there, and we're giving IVs to people. And we actually had a friend that really got so hot that he had to have that done to be able to hydrate himself, because it got that bad. And not because of he wasn't checking himself, it's just that the conditions that he was in was just, it was, you know, super hot, and it was too much. And so, you know, watch yourself. How are you feeling throughout the day? Brain fog will keep up. If you feel like, gosh, I can't think of where I'm at on the track, maybe you get lost on the track, or some weird, you know, mental mistakes that you're making. Even if it's dumb things like, where did I put that torque wrench? I can't find it. Those are all signs of dehydration, and will progress very quickly to heat exhaustion, heat stroke, and other, you know, very severe problems. And you don't want to have that on track, because now you're controlling a car with, you know, almost, you know, no mental ability to you know, to control it. So.
The worst part about dehydration is you won't know you're there, obviously. On the track, if you're not going to the restroom like once before and after every session, that means I think in general that you're behind the curve. But this sport is super physical. I think sometimes I will see on my watch that I burn like 1700 calories a day, sometimes maybe more. Like we're out there, you shouldn't be wrestling the car, but you're out there, you're moving. Some people come out of the car, you are 100% drenched. And 90% of the time, everyone around us, they'll have a cooler, they'll have water. So you just end up getting out of the car, relaxing, you don't grab the water. By the time you know it, it's been an hour, you're back inside the car. So every time you hop out of the car, grab a water bottle, chug that water bottle, because 100% guaranteed you're gonna forget.
So stay hydrated, you know, it's super important. So that's our you know, top mistakes that we see, that we've put together. Let us know, did anything resonate with you? Was anything a surprise to you, or did we miss anything? Is there anything else maybe we, you know, need to think about? Maybe we need to learn a couple things, right? So yeah, leave it in the comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe.
And share this with your buddies. That way they are on the same foot when they arrive to the track.
Exactly.
See you guys next time.
Thank you.